All right, NXT 2.0. Yeah, I had to do this quick reaction video this morning after watching it, thinking about it a little bit. Um, I'll be honest, I liked it. But is NXT 2.0 basically WCW Worldwide? For those of you who are too young or don't know about it, and you could actually find these on YouTube because it's not on the WWF network, or WWE network, I should say. WCW Worldwide was a studio show that WCW had. I believe actually they had it right up until it was actually the last thing WCW ever aired after the last Nitro because it was pre-recorded. And just for reference, a trivia question: Scott Hudson is the last person to ever speak on a WCW broadcast. Anyway, it was a studio show that would have up and coming wrestlers, some established wrestlers, and it was used to help develop talent, give talent a place to work. Obviously, they had the power plant, which was the precursor to what Triple H created in the Performance Center. If you ask, Triple H used to work at the power plant, he used to work out there and train there. So if you ask him, he'll be the first to admit that Sarge and the guys in WCW, they obviously had a big influence on him. Terry Taylor will tell you the same thing because Hunter ended up emulating that and making a more, you could argue, more modern, more advanced version of it, with including housing and all that. Um, the the Worldwide as a show was never meant to match Nitro or Thunder. It was always meant to help develop talent and be a smaller, more intimate show. You could find in the episodes of it in 1998, you can see Bill Goldberg on there. You can find a lot of talent coming through there, and they would have veterans too. Don't get me wrong. I've seen Scott Hall on there and other veteran wrestlers, but anyway, I can't help but think about that when I watch NXT 2.0. Reason why is, first of all, the arena, the setup, which I really liked. It had that studio feel. It's a little bit more intimate, especially without the cage around it. I like the setup with the cage, by the way, at the Capitol Wrestling Center. I thought that was really cool. But the setup they had was nice, and it certainly felt like the wrestling ring was a feature presentation. I could argue they did a better job with that than they do on Raw and SmackDown, where the whole arena is so lit and so grand. And sometimes I think the brightness, it takes away not only from the ring, but also takes away from the edge of the show. Because when you watch like a UFC pay-per-view or any kind of MMA, the center of the attention is the ring, or is the octagon, or the cage. It's all about focusing on where the action is, and the bigger shows in WWE don't really do that. So I really felt like it was a cool setup, and I guess you got to give credit to Vince and everybody who took over to help with that. And I'm not going to speculate here who's running what. I know I've heard all the rumors and whatnot, but I'm just going to give my opinion, and whoever's running it or not running it can take credit or not. So the WWE, with this new evolution of NXT, this change, right? I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, first of all, I heard the rumors about Scott Steiner's nephew, Bronson Rex Steiner. It looked like they were going to call him Rex Steiner, which I thought was a really cool name for him. And then they changed. He comes out as Braun Breaker. I mean, look, you're going to hear a lot of people mock the name. The name would be fine if he wasn't Scott Steiner's nephew and Rick Steiner's son. The name would be fine if you didn't know who his famous family was. It makes no sense to ignore that name. If you watch baseball and you hear about Vladimir Guerrero Jr., they will talk about his father 100 times. They want you to know who he is. They like relating the older generation to the younger generation. If you went around to old wrestling fans who stopped watching and said, hey, Rick Steiner's son, Scott Steiner's nephew, is a wrestler. He's jacked, and he literally debuted in WWE the other day. You want to take a look? Half of them would say yeah. They'd be curious, right? So the name was dumb for him, not dumb in general. So I don't give him a full knock on that, but you got to give him a partial knock because it's like, what are you doing? You have a chance to market this guy, you know. The other thing is maybe Vince didn't want to call him Steiner because he doesn't own the name Steiner. And, you know, maybe he just wanted to, maybe he felt like, hey, you know what? I'd rather own Breaker, so if he goes anywhere else, he can't use it. And that's why we're going to call him that, regardless of what we're losing out on. That might be. So anyway, Breaker gets a match with LA Knight. I didn't know why LA Knight had two matches a night because the whole show was built around the wedding, and obviously the fatal 4-way match for the NXT Championship. That was the whole thing. That was what this show. That was the kickoff of the new NXT 2.0, and you know that was really the whole buildup, right? It was about getting ourselves to this episode and this new era, and the wedding was going to be a big part with Loomis and Hartwell, and the NXT Championship match. At first, it was just going to be a 4-way, but then they had to change it to a title match because Samoa Joe dropped the belt. Now, if you wanted to be a conspiracy theorist, you could say Samoa Joe dropping the belt, so the opening main event match has a title match in it. Very suspicious. Here's why I think it's legit. One, if Joe was going to drop the belt, and if you wanted a title match in the main event, you could have had Joe go out and lose. So I do think that the injury's real, and I think that everything is on the up and up there. But regardless, that added to the intrigue of this opening night, right? Of this new era. So Breaker fighting LA Knight, I just assumed LA Knight's going to win the match, right? Guy's not going to get beat in his debut. LA Knight hasn't been there on that long, so I know that they don't want to have him lose too much, and they're putting him in the main event later. But in a shocking twist, Braun Breaker lifts up LA Knight. LA Knight's a big guy, by the way, so Braun Breaker's a pretty strong dude. He lifts him up and does that overhead press into a slam that Bill Goldberg used to do back in the day all the time in WCW, one of his main moves. First of all, I'm a mark for that move. I think it's a great power move. It looks awesome. He did it seamlessly, and that finished off LA Knight. So it was a good twist, awesome. And when Breaker went backstage, he was getting congratulated. He looked like a superstar. He's going to be my new favorite wrestler probably. And, congrats to him, but also, good job by Vince and everybody putting him over and, introducing this new monster, right? So then we had Imperium versus Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen. Well, I found out later on that Josh Briggs, I believe, is the son of Bull Buchanan. So we got another second generation guy who's big dude. Both these teams are physically stout. And you know what? I'm not going to just go through rundowns because I realize that's kind of boring and you don't need that from me. You could watch the episode. What I will say, between that match, skipping the women, and looking at Ridge Holland, Drake Maverick, the Creed brothers, versus Dan Jarman and Trevor Skelly, and then the main event, right? Pete Dunne, Ciampa, LA Knight, and then Von Wagner, who took the place of Kyle O'Reilly. There's a message being sent to the world and to the locker room, right? WWE is moving in a direction away from the flippy-floppy stuff. They are moving in the direction away from the middle small guy. Like, Tommaso Ciampa looks like he's in great shape. He looks like he could beat your ass, right? So Ciampa is going to be all right. Pete Dunne is going to be all right. Drake Maverick's not going to be all right. He's full jobber now. Okay? If Marco Stunt was in WWE, they'd have him get stomped down in the corner for 10 minutes. It is obvious that WWE is sending a message in and outside. They are saying, we want the guys who look like the traditional main eventers. And guess what? I'm all for it. WWE needs to distinguish themselves from the rest of the business, not just for being stiff, not just for having a boring show, not just for not letting their talent travel and wrestle in other companies, not just for not being willing to work with other people, not just for all the negativity. How about something different? If AEW and all these other companies want to focus on the middle small guy and the planchas and all that other stuff, WWE should don't just be the land of the big man, but really be the development of the big man. Bring up new guys who are jacked up, who look like monsters, and let them show that big men can wrestle, tell stories, than just little guys who do the same super kicks and the same planchas over and over and over again. This is a great direction. I'm not saying that they needed to get rid of the NXT they had, because the NXT that they had was a great counter to Impact and to Ring of Honor and AEW. But I also understand that in Vince's eyes, and honestly in the eyes of a lot of fans, was anybody from NXT 1 realistically going to beat Roman Reigns? Was anybody in NXT 1 realistically going to beat Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar? I mean, it's just the fact. The heavyweight champion is the main event of the show. And that's always going to be the main event of WrestleMania. Are you producing people from NXT who can realistically beat those guys? The answer was no. So they could have had NXT original continue, and they could have either made a separate promotion or just had a developmental show that doesn't air on any network or anything, maybe just put on the WWE network, where they just have random matches. And you could call it WWE Performance, right? Now, they chose to go in a different direction. They chose to replace the show that they had. And I'm fine with it only because I think it's a necessary evil for this company. I do see the value in the old NXT, and I have no problem with it. But the one knock I could say at the old NXT was when you build your show around guys who look like a wet noodle, sometimes the risk is that they don't translate to the upper show. And even guys like Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross in NXT was a big fish in a small pond, right? He was a big man on campus. But in regular WWE, he's a more average sized guy, right? There's no knock on him. He has to succeed with his character. He has to succeed with everything else he does. But I understand the trepidation of the WWE to have a promotion in their ranks that wasn't going to beat AEW in the ratings, but also wasn't going to produce a main event. Now you have something where if you have a really athletic guy, right? If you had an Adam Cole right now in this NXT, he would look like a superstar because he would be a contrast to the bigger guys. But when there's 100 Adam Coles and there's only one or two guys who look like they could beat up Roman Reigns, I think that's a problem. And look, the Creed brothers, two big guys, look like they could go, beating up the smaller guys. Ridge Holland, a big guy, looks like he could go. Pete Dunne's in good shape. I mean, everybody in this promotion looks like they hit the gym. They all could wrestle. They all could fight. It's believable that they could fight. It's believable that you wouldn't want to see them in a back alley. It's believable that they could carry themselves in any situation. And it's up to WWE to then use this promotion to develop all their other skills. The ring work, the mic work, all the character development. And I think they'll get there. So there's a lot to like about this. I love Braun Breaker. I don't like the name. The name is fine, but I wish they would call him Steiner. But I think there's a lot to like about NXT 2.0. And it does remind me a little bit of WCW Worldwide. I know a lot of fans are going to be pissed. I know a lot of fans are going to look at this and say, what am I watching? What happened to NXT that I liked? What happened to, Triple H standing with guys half his size saying, we are NXT and all that? And you know what? Maybe there's a shame that they had to cut that show to get this. But I do think there's going to be value in this. I also think that wrestling was hot for the 80s mainly into the mid 90s to the end of the 90s, early 2000s, wrestling was hot when all the guys looked like they were killers and there were athletic guys who were mixed in there who looked a little bit less badass, but they were special athletes. And I think that's the formula for success. I don't think a company can survive in pro wrestling where the wrestlers don't look like killers and it's not real. That's the reality when you have MMA. If you had somebody who watched MMA and they watched NXT 2.0 last night, the one thing, and I have a buddy who I'm trying to get back into wrestling who I have these kind of conversations with all the time. The one thing you can't argue with about NXT 2.0 is that everybody who was on that card who won, not the jobbers, not Drake Maverick, and I'm excluding the women from this, they all looked like they could beat your ass. They all look tough. You're not looking at these guys saying, oh man, those are pushovers. Now, the presentation of the show was great. I worry if you bring these guys up to Raw, if you bring up to SmackDown, are they going to stumble? Here's the one advantage of Vince and Bruce Pritchard and Kevin Dunn being intimately involved in NXT 2.0. The one advantage, and I'm not saying it's a great thing, but I'm saying it's great for the situation. If Vince and his boys are the ones running NXT 2.0, and they like Scott Steiner's nephew, they're not going to bury him on Raw. The difference is, when Keith Lee came up to Raw, Keith Lee wasn't their guy. Keith Lee was Triple H's guy. Keith Lee was Shawn Michaels' guy. Keith Lee was the NXT guy, right? And that's what happens to these NXT guys. They usually are related to some of the guys who are on the other shows, indie promotions, etc. And they're not Vince's guys. So whether that's right or wrong, I'm not arguing that. What I am saying is, if these are already pre-approved superstars that are getting moved up to Raw and SmackDown, then you don't have to worry about them getting misused. You don't have to worry about them getting benched, because these are guys Vince wants to push to the moon. These are guys Vince believes in. These are guys that by de facto then the other powers that be will believe in. And I'm going to be honest, I know a lot of people are going to be angry for Triple H. They're going to be upset for Triple H. Let's not forget, Triple H 6'4", 260. Triple H is not opposed to a Braun Breaker. Okay? He's signed almost all the guys who are at the Performance Center too. He's not just the NXT producer or whatever his role was, right? That's not his only job. So Triple H is not opposed to the people who are going to be pushed to the moon. It's just that Triple H probably was a little bit more empathetic to the fans who wanted to see more Adam Cole-like guys. I do think there will be an Adam Cole-like star in NXT, but he's going to be special instead of it being 50 guys. Now, Kyle O'Reilly getting beat up, getting moved out of the main event, that's tough. I don't know if he had a real injury or if that's just Vince sending a message. But the message to me was sent loud and clear. We are not trying to be Ring of Honor. We are not trying to be AEW. We are not trying to look like AEW. And I think that's another reason they changed the colors, by the way. NXT and AEW, their logos were almost too similar. So now we're saying we don't look anything like them. We're not going to feel like them. We have a different studio. And the talent level that comes through here, they are going to look and act and walk and talk differently. And I think that's great. I think it puts pressure. The only company that, to me, looks like what I saw last night at NXT 2.0 is the NWA. If you watch their studio show, they do feature more physically stout guys. They feature a more southern stiff style of wrestling, right? Okay, so that's the similarity. That's the connection there. Other than that, this is a totally different brand of wrestling. And I think it's great. I really do. I think it's great. And I think it's going to go a long way towards improving the overall direction of the wrestling business, because I think wrestling has gotten a little lazy and has lost, not really its credibility, but I think it's lost some of its standards when it's come to athletes and the presentation of the sport. I've said it many, many times, and I'll say it again. In wrestling, the presentation is more important than in MMA. Because in MMA, whether you think a guy is tough or not, he's tough. He's tough. Because he's a real fighter getting into a real fight. In wrestling, the presentation matters more because it's not what they are, it's what you believe. Because you know it's not real. It's not what they are. It's what you believe. I say that again. It is not what the wrestlers are, whether they're tough or not. And believe me, I think everybody who wrestles has to be somewhat tough because it's a tough thing to do. So let's not insult people who do it. But what I'm saying is that the wrestlers themselves, whether they are true badasses, are they beer swilling rednecks, who could kick your ass in a bar fight? Are they former MMA guys like Ken Shamrock? Are they boxers? Are they football players? Whatever they are. The modern wrestler today, right, to the fan, are they tough or not, is the question. And to me, that's the hump you have to get over to make them embrace and suspend belief. Because if they don't do that, then they look at it and say, well, it's not MMA. I know it's not real and it looks a little silly. And I know diehard fans who love the old NXT and who love AEW, and I like AEW too. I like a lot of wrestling. This is not a knock on anybody. I'm just trying to give a different angle on why I see NXT 2.0 succeeding, despite the fact that it substituted out something that was popular. Okay, but this brand, this is an opportunity to restore something that NWA has been trying to restore, that SWE Fury has been trying to restore. If you don't know SWE Fury, go on YouTube, type in SWE space Fury, and watch some good old Southern Texas wrestling. It's some good stuff. But I think NXT 2.0 is trying to reestablish that. And I'm going to give credit to Vince McMahon. I'm going to give credit to Bruce and Kevin Dunn and everybody else involved. I think you have to be fair. You can't knock them when it's bad and then not give them credit when it's good. And I know some people are just going to hate NXT 2.0 simply because it's not NXT original, and that's fine. But if you liked wrestling in 2003, if you liked wrestling in 1998, then there's nothing wrong with NXT 2.0. The only reason you would hate NXT 2.0, if you're being fair, is because you only like the flippy-floppy style. You only like the planchas, the super kicks, the dives, and you don't like any other kind of wrestling. You don't like just straight, stiff wrestling. And if that's your preference, then that's fine. But there's a lot of that out there. There's not enough of what NXT presented last night. There's not enough of what SW Fury presents or what the NWA presents. So I think this is great. I think it's going to be fun. Message sent and received. Tommaso Ciampa. I cut this scene and I cut this picture, I should say, because Tommaso Ciampa staring down Braun Breaker. I also thought this is really cool to see, right? This is an old school Vince McMahon show in the sense that Braun Breaker had an opening match, right? He makes his debut. He wins the match. He gets congrats backstage, high fives from all these different wrestlers, people backstage, in a separate scene. And then later in the show, at the end, Tommaso Ciampa is watching the wedding with the belt that he just won in a Fatal 4-Way. And then he turns and Braun Breaker comes up to him, congratulates him, and then stares at the belt and then stares at him as Ciampa turns his respect and handshake to something else. And they both kind of growl at each other. And if you look at Steiner's eyes, or Breaker's eyes, all you can see is, I'm coming for you. If you look at Ciampa, he's kind of got this look like, I know you're coming for me. They told the story with their eyes, with their body language, and they told the story brilliantly. Brilliantly. This is more impressive than any plancha could ever be. They just told a story with their eyes and with their body language. Now, I don't know if this is because he is the son of Rick Steiner and he is the nephew of Big Pump Scott Steiner, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Scott Steiner and Triple H, my two favorite wrestlers of all time. I'll tell you straight out. I'm a mark for those guys. I had the honor of meeting Scott Steiner 2 years ago. I've never met Triple H, but I am a mark for them. So I'm going to admit that. But I will just say that Bronson Rex Steiner, or Braun Breaker, whatever you want to call him, this kid told a story with his eyes and his body language with Tommaso Ciampa, and this was very impressive. Because this is what they don't do on Raw and SmackDown. This is what they haven't done at pay-per-views. This is what's missing. There's an added edge and element. I know that the logo has tie-dye in it. I know it's a different set. But you just remove all the comparisons and just look at their eyes. This is a great job of telling a story. You know that Ciampa's got to look over his shoulder for this kid, and you know this kid's coming for him. And I'm going to tell you right now, unless he screws it up, Braun Breaker's a future world champion and a future main eventer in the WWE. Vince McMahon loves this guy. You could already tell. The way he was featured on this show, I haven't seen that in a long time. So, great job by them. Great job by all the wrestlers. Great job by everybody involved last night. It wasn't easy. You're going to have naysayers. But look, the goal of this new promotion is to develop WrestleMania main eventers. And it's obvious that's where they're going. And I'm going to tell you, I think Ciampa could be a main eventer too in the big promotion. I don't want to see all the guys like Ciampa and not Kyle O'Reilly, but Roderick Strong. I don't want to see them all get hamstrung. I will say Roderick Strong in the Diamond Mine, I think that's a great fit. He's a little smaller than the other guys, but he's a craftier, older guy. Everybody knows him. And I think he's going to be a good fit there. I want to see... And by the way, kudos again to Vince. He's fighting for the Cruiserweight belt. So what they're doing is they're telling you, this is Roderick Strong's weight class, and he's going to fight in that weight class. You want to talk about realism, right? AEW is all about, we're going to have a sport-like presentation with the records. Nobody cares what the records are in AEW. The fans don't know the records. They're not important. But in WWE, if they're going to start emphasizing what weight class are you and we're going to fight you in that weight class, that's a great job. That's sport-like presentation. Because in MMA, Brock Lesnar isn't going to fight Conor McGregor, right? They're different weight classes. So that's a great job. I hope Tommaso Ciampa gets a shot in Raw and SmackDown. I hope everybody on this card gets a shot because that's progress for them. But this is a great show. I loved it. It might become my favorite show if they keep it up. I don't know what you guys think. I'm going to post this video on my YouTube channel. You can put your comments on the bottom or below. Say what you want. Say what you will. But yeah, I'm a fan of this one. NXT 2.0, is it WCW Worldwide or is it just a new direction? Either way, looks like Bronson Rex Steiner is going to be a superstar, along with some of these other guys, second-generation guys, including Wayne Bloom, Wayne Bloom's son, and also Bull Buchanan's son. So very, very cool to see. I'm excited to see where this goes. Also, Swerve and his group, that rap group that they have, they do a good job, good promo. Just credit all around. This is good stuff, good stuff. And it's always good to see more wrestling, right? There's a lot of flippy floppy stuff, but we need some more wrestling in our life to ground ourselves and to give some of the younger fans exposure to what we fell in love with as kids and let them see you can tell stories with a simple right hand. You don't need to be the kind of athlete that can do triple axels in the sky like a figure skater or a ballerina. You can have a mix of that style along with the physical style of bigger guys. So I think it's fun. This is good stuff. And, we'll see where it goes. Hopefully this show continues forward in this direction. All right, guys. Bye.